What's up, boys and gerbils? Hello, Bear Nation. Welcome back to the mean streets of YouTube. Got a question over on the Rumble channel. Bear, how come you're not running? No, you're not on Rumble. Go look. From Rigger Madigger. Bear, I want to know your thoughts on the modern day Minuteman. Can civilians be just as badass as infantry? That's a wide open question, and it makes me think in the direction of, and I'm not Rigger Madigger, I'm not saying you're asking this, but I think a lot of people think this way because at some point we might have to fight the government. We're going to talk about that today. My thoughts on the modern day Minuteman. Exhibit A. Yes, you have a constitutionally protected, God-given right to protect yourself and those that you love. Our nation, for the longest time, did not have a standing army. Many of our founding fathers were against having a standing army. We were a nation of militias. The common man, who was appropriately equipped to be able to walk out the door with his haversack and his flintlock and go to town, do some work, and go home again, feed the sheep, grind the wheat, split the firewood, or whatever you may have. Clearly, as America became more and more imperialistic, we needed a standing army so we could perpetuate freedom throughout the world and make money for big banks and all of that. The nation of Israel, in the Bible, not the, postage stamp size piece of land over there in the Middle East, but the biblical Israel didn't have a standing army, right? Beat your plowshares into swords and then your swords back into plowshares. So there's something to be said for the modern Minuteman and the concept of, I'm a fan. I embrace the concept to a certain extent. Mostly because I think if you're going to own the equipment that a modern Minuteman would have, you should be training with it. You should be going out and doing the things with it, figuring out, do I need a plate carrier or do I need a chest rig? Do I like a 16-inch barrel, an 18-inch barrel, a 20-inch barrel? What about a 14.5-inch barrel? Oh no, I like a 10.5. Whatever. You need to figure all that stuff out for yourself. What radio should I use? What kind of boots do you use, Bear? I don't know. I use what works for me, and what works for me in my context probably isn't going to work for you. Part of why gear reviews are bullshit, but I digress. So my thoughts on the modern day Minuteman. Yes, asterisk. I don't think men today are made of the same stuff that they were made of 250 years ago. So let's just go ahead and get that out there, including myself. Nobody here, nobody watching this video, or very, very few of you woke up this morning without any electricity and used primitive tools to build a fire in your cabin that you built by hand before you went out and slaughtered your morning meal and then ground the wheat to make the bread so that you could have a biscuit to go with the chicken that you just fried in lard or whatever you might have. And today's ambitions are, I'm going to fell some of these cedar trees by hand and turn them into fence posts so that I can make a paddock for my horse. We were different people back then. We're not the people that we are. We are not the people we were back then. The people that we are today are different than those people. Now, I think to a large extent, the spirit of that lives on in Americans. But not all Americans. Not even the majority of Americans, I would dare say. And the spirit will only take you so far. At some point, you need to be able to yod, to do stuff, right? So I think for a lot of people, the modern militia movement and the Minuteman concept has become an excuse to play dress up and buy equipment that they'll never use, they'll never train with, to own rifles they've never zeroed, and they've never confirmed their BDC on their 1-8 LPVO, and they don't know the difference between 55 and 62 and 55 ballistic tip and 62 soft point and 77 OTM. They have no idea. They have no idea. They're just playing. And I don't think you should bet your life or the life of a nation on people who are just playing. Can civilians be just as badass as infantry? Can civilians be just as badass as infantry? In a word, no. Because in the infantry, your full-time job is infantry stuff. Civilians The vast majority of civilians, yes, blanket statements. I'm sure somebody's already emoting in the comments about all the reasons Bear is wrong. I also want to be clear, I'm not advocating for violence at all in this video, and anybody that does show up advocating for violence in the comments, block, ban, delete. We need to fight the government. Best of luck, homie. Best of luck. 4-letter word. FLIR. Forward-looking infrared. You go fight them all you want. They will turn you into a smoldering pile of ash. More on that later in the video. Can civilians be just as badass as infantry? No. No, because the vast majority of civilians, almost all civilians, if not all civilians, their full-time job is not to be infantry. Sorry, I'm a little worked up. I'm getting ahead of myself in this video. Is not to be infantry. It's to be a mom, a dad, a husband, a wife, a father, a grandfather, a carpenter, a baker, a candlestick maker, whatever it might be, an IT specialist, an auto repair specialist, whatever, a farmer, a rancher, a water treatment plant operator. That's their full-time job. They don't have 6, 12, 18, 36 months to dedicate to having the prowess that the infantry has. And that again gets back to, you can buy all the kit. You can LARP out to your heart's content, and you can make yourself a Mark 12 SPR clone all you want. That doesn't make you a designated marksman. I can buy all the things I want and go train with whoever I want to all across the country, all across the world. And I can impart knowledge into my dome. I can learn, and I'm not negating training at all. But I will never be special forces. I will never have the credentials and the experience that all of my instructors have had. Doesn't mean I can't learn from them, because I do. But I will never be them. They're two very distinctly different things. So can civilians be just as badass as infantry? In a word, no. Now, on the margins, the best civilians and the worst infantrymen probably overlap. Probably overlap. But that's the exception, not the rule. Most civilians, have you been to Walmart lately? Walk around and look, and you tell me those people are going to go fight a war? Negative. If you're in the Army or the Marines, they make you PT. They make you PT. You will conduct physical training. Or you will leave. And not on good terms, right? So I don't see that dedication in the civilian world, and the civilians that are dedicated to PTing, very few of them are dedicated to modern militia, Minuteman, that kind of stuff, or even training outside of the gym. Just how to use a handgun, how to use a rifle. No, they're not. Or how to use a first aid kit, how to use a radio. They're not training on that. So can civilians be just as badass as infantry? No, asterisk. Excuse me. But I want to look at the deeper question here, because I think there's a deeper question here. Can you fight the government? Is it possible in today's day and age for us, we, the modern militiaman movement, the Minuteman, the whatever, to actually fight the government? Again, not advocating for violence. This is a thought exercise, okay? Well, there's some recent conflicts where one could argue the answer is yes. Look at the global war on terror. Who's running Afghanistan right now? Ain't us. Look at what's happening in Ukraine. Ukrainian civilians are fighting the second, if not third tier military on the planet. They've had a lot of help. People who don't have names and who have been to places that don't exist have been over in Ukraine for a decade training those people in FID, foreign internal defense. 196 billion of your taxpayer dollars have been dedicated to making sure that those civilians over there can fight the big red army. So, Asterisk. Yeah, can civilians stand up to a government? Asterisk. Let's also note that our government, between the .gov and the DoD, Department of Defense, spends as much on military spending, defense spending, as like the next 17 countries combined. So, while I'm not of the opinion that the average rank and file member of the DoD is going to turn his or her or its, because it's a things now, or its weapons on civilians, God help you if they did. .gov agencies, on the other hand, seem to have a propensity for targeting and therefore executing American citizens, civilians. It's kind of concerning, you know. Ruby Ridge anybody, Waco anybody, Obama drone strikes on domestic soil anybody, ATF, FBI, collusion anybody. You know, it's like that these things have been proven out in time. They do these things. You know, oh, the NSA doesn't spy on anybody. No, we just have a joint base in Australia that nobody's supposed to know about that has really big ears. And so the Australians spy on us, and then they hand that information to us, and then we spy on everybody else, and we hand that information over to them. Okay. Can you fight the government? Well, what do they have that we don't have? Let's look at that. Leadership. Even if it's poor leadership, they have a hierarchy. They have a chain of command. They have a structure. They're organized. Somebody's in charge, down to the lowest level boots on the ground. Somebody's in charge. Don't see that very much in the modern militia movement, Minuteman movement. Although I have seen it somewhat, and frankly, in the cases that I have seen it, it seemed like a bunch of dudes who were past their military prime who were just now LARPing, right? I'm General Bear. You're not General anybody. You're not General Staff. What are you talking about? Like, you're Bill the mechanic who had 14 too many Budweisers last night. Like, you're not a general. Leadership, the ability to exert soft power and hard power. Soft power. Can you coerce, for better or worse, the people around you? Can you build rapport? Are you networking with people, even a little bit? What about hard power? Hard power is force. Because in most contexts today as a civilian, you employ force. Even in free states like Oklahoma that I live in, there's going to be an inquiry. And if you were wrong in the employment of that force, you're going to go to jail. Luckily for me, I live on the res, so nobody knows who's allowed to arrest who around here anymore, so it's literally the Wild West, which I'm fine with. I'm super cool with that. It's a good time. But hard power and soft power, they have it. We don't have near as much of it. What about, let's look at a little bit of like infrastructure, like medical. Okay, one of your guys gets shot. Where do you take him? Okay, we know TCCC. We did care under fire, tactical field care. Hell, we even performed a medevac. It was awesome. Where are we going? What are we doing with Bill, who got gut shot over here? Do you have a network of hospitals or safe sites? Do you have doctors, paramedics, EMTs? And I'm asking these questions not because I want to piss in anybody's Cheerios, but because I want you to think about these things. Because all of this, by the way, can you fight the government, could easily be applied to preparedness. Surviving the end of the world as we know it. Well, I would submit to you that surviving the end of the world is a fairly lofty goal, and one should probably take it fairly seriously if you intend to actually survive. Thought exercise. Medical. Good job. You stopped the bleed. You used a tourniquet on the extremity or packed a junctional area or whatever. Chest seals on the pleural space. Good job. Now what? Where are you going? What about your intel? Who provides you intel? And by the way, intel is usually connected to commo. Do you have a section for that? Do you have people that's their job? Because see, everybody wants to be the pointy end of the spear with their rifle and their plate carrier. and I'm going to kick in this door and clear this house. You go right ahead. You clear as many rooms, as many houses as you want. The attrition rate for doing something like that is astronomical. As long as there's nothing I love inside of that house, I'm going to throw a Molotov cocktail at it. Or punch 5308 AP rounds through the side of it. Or 150. Or 900, if that's what it takes. Why are we going in this building? We got a room clear, bro. Do we? Why? You want to lose 4 of the 8 guys in your stack the moment you come through the door? It's stupid. It's video game LARPer bullshit. So Intel, Commo. Who's your Intel section, your Commo section, your medical section, your logistics? Log. An army fights on its what? Its stomach. Who's cooking the food? Who's moving the food? Who's growing the food? Who started planning 120 days ago so there'd be food to eat today? See, a resistance is not just dudes with rifles. Everybody wants to be on the security team because it's sexy. Because you can buy your way out of that problem on Amazon or on PalmettoStateArmory.com or Daniel Defense or Freedom Munitions or SE. I love this SE knife because I can cut the throats of my enemies with it. Shut up. Everybody wants to do the cool guy stuff, except for the cool guys who've already done it, who understand what of a mental, emotional, physical, spiritual shit show that it is, and will not engage in that unless it is life and death for the people that they love. They're not sitting around jerking off thinking about getting in a stack and clearing this building in their LARPer gear. Who's feeding you? Who's in charge of maintenance and engineering? Who's supporting the infrastructure that it takes to support you, Mr. Door Kicker? Do you have a network? Just a network of people. Just start with that. Because if you had a network, you could start with having a network. And then if you're going to operationally operate like an operator in a non-permissive environment because you're going to go fight the government because civilians might be as badass as infantry and I'm a modern day Minuteman, do you have prepositioned caches of stuff that you're going to need? Probably medical supplies because good for you, you brought 11 mags to this gunfight, 330 rounds, and you fired most of them. How many rounds came back at you? Were you that good? You're that good with your nods and your thermals at night that you're going to do actions on the objective at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to fire all the rounds and nobody's ever going to shoot back at us. So it's now in my mind, make-believe, a one-way range, not a two-way range. Copy. Do you have caches set up? Do you have safe sites? Places that you can go? Like, and I mean go, like they're looking for us and if they find us, they're going to kill us. You got friends like that? How close are they? Do they know you're coming? Do you have the ability to communicate with them securely? Do you have go and no-go codes? Did you do an SDR to make sure that you're not leading the bad guys back to your best friend's house and now they're going to firebomb it? What's an SDR? Don't even play these games if you don't know that phrase. See, resistance is more than cool guys with guns. Read Resistance Operating Concept by Otto C. Fiala. Just start there. There's 40,000 pages easily that have been written on resistance in the last decade. Probably. But just start with that. Resistance Operating Concept by Otto C. Fiala. There are 3 wings of a resistance. Guerrillas, auxiliary, and underground. The guerrillas do all the fighting, usually at night, usually away from the population centers. The auxiliary supports them. This is the baker that doesn't have an AK, but instead of making 10 loaves of bread, he made 12 loaves of bread, and 2 of those loaves of bread got passed on to the guerrillas so they had something to eat. This is the doctor or the EMT or the paramedic that provides medical services under the threshold of discovery to guerrillas that have been injured. This is logistics, log train. This is intel. This is commo, the auxiliary. And the underground is your network of safe sites and the people that nobody ever knows. They are not at all connected, wink, wink, to this resistance movement. And a lot of times in the underground, that's where your soft power is exerted. This is the mayor that got co-opted, or the county commissioner who's sympathetic to our cause, or this guy over here who works at the Army National Guard Depot that lost a pallet of 5.56. Wink, wink. That gets back to network, which is not nearly as sexy as a Dan New Daniel Defense Mark IV, or whatever the hell they call them. Can you even IMT, bro? Individual movement technique. Because some people have fewer participatory vertebrae than others. Ask me how I know. Can you even IMT? Because if you can't IMT, you can't cover and move, which means you can't small unit tactics, which means shoot, move, communicate, sustain doesn't apply, which means you might as well just turn yourself in if you're going to go fight the government, because they'll win. I talked about intel. How much intel do they collect on you with your 7th generation collection device in your pocket that you're looking at right now? How much intel do you have on them? Whoever they is. You get all kitted up and you're ready to go do Minuteman stuff. Where? For how long? What's your mission essential task list? Did you do PCCs and PCIs? Who's in charge of this thing? What's our commo plan? Have we put a spot map together? Who's going to notify my wife if I got shot in the face because this is stupid? Who's going to raise my kids if I got shot in the face because this is stupid? Can we even shoot our weapons? Can you hit a 10-inch circle at 300 yards repeatedly from all positions? No, but I got a cool new plate carrier, and it's got some cool patches on it that I saw in a post on Instagram. See, prepping is perpetuating normalcy for the people that you love. Perpetuating normalcy for the people that you love. Now, I will admit, there is the possibility, although I don't know how probable, that this whole thing goes to hell in a handbasket. It turns to shit that fast. And yeah, I want every damn firearm I can get. I want a horse-drawn wagon loaded up with, loaded magazines. Come on, Betsy, we're going to war. But that's not normalcy. That's not normalcy. And if it is normalcy for you, you wouldn't be asking this question because you'd probably be a crayon-eating jarhead, in which case, make the grass grow. Good job. But for everybody else, that's not normal. I don't want to perpetuate that. I might find myself in that position, but I don't want to perpetuate it. And the last thing I want to touch on. Can you fight the government? The modern day Minutemen. Because who are they going to be fighting? Unless, of course, the Panamanian paratroopers land 3 towns over, in which case is your ego subordinated enough that you will work at the direction of the government to protect your homeland. Anybody ever thought about that? I hate the government. Me too. Not a fan. Not picking up arms against them, though, because they'll win. There it is in a nutshell. They will win. But what happens if China invades? We'll go out of left field. China invades. Holy shit, there's Chinese paratroopers everywhere, man. They got mechanized divisions. They're advancing under artillery cover. What are we going to do? And then the National Guard shows up and they're like, you, and you, militia dudes, get in the truck. How much do you love America now? You on board with that? Oh, no, I fight for me and mine. Oh, so you won't get in the chain of command. Which means you're now disaggregated, disorganized, which means they can very easily cut you out of the flock and target you as an individual, which means you're dead. Tracking. Copy that. War's not normal. Don't seek war. Doesn't mean don't be prepared for it, but don't seek war. And the United States Department of Defense, whether you agree or disagree, historically, in the last 250 years, is probably the best in the world at war. You don't want to go to war against them. And the government has been militarizing, the .gov has been militarizing for 40 or 50 years. Filled with people who have wartime experience. They have the same equipment. They have the same Intel and Commo networks. They have the same TTPs. You don't want to fight them. And even if they're not that good, quantity has a quality all of its own. How many of you are there? You better get really good at the peel. You better get really good at break contact, man. Now, lastly, I would submit, they're not coming for you. The government's not coming for you. They don't care about you. You're not on their radar, good or bad. Because when this whole circus comes crashing to the ground, they're not taking care of you. They're not targeting you. They're nothing. They're nothing. It's continuity of government, not continuity of you. It's not continuity of governed. It's continuity of government. COG. They don't give a single solitary shit about you. Not when a tornado or a hurricane wrecks your house. Not when there's a war going on. Not when the economy finally collapses and your dollar's worthless, or there's no food in the grocery store, or there's no jobs. Certainly don't care about your kids. We've instituted systematic murder of the unborn in this country. They don't care about you. They're going to go into their bunkers. They're going to go into their holes. They're going to crack open their freeze-dried food and their bottled water, and they're going to sit back and watch the whole thing on live television, and in 12 months, 90% of the American populace will be dead, and they can arise from the ashes, the new overlords of the former United States of America, FUSA. I don't care about you. I don't care about me. So, modern day Minuteman, if you're gonna LARP, at least use your shit. If you're gonna LARP, live action roleplay, at least use your shit. At least go train with it. Can civilians be just as badass as infantry? No. No. Because, in a nutshell, what makes the infantry effective is that it's not a single soldier, or a handful of them, or a dozen, or 2 dozen, or 10 dozen. Oh, it's wave after wave after wave with air mobility command and, mechanized infantry and combined arms and air superiority and secured commo and log train and... No. Civilians can't be just as badass as infantry. You can learn infantry skills. And I'd say you probably should. But after you learn those skills, don't go fight the government. Don't pick a fight that you can't win. Speed, surprise, violence of action. The modern Minuteman movement doesn't have speed because it's uncoordinated. It doesn't have surprise because it's uncoordinated and people flap their jaws 24/7, 365. Here we are talking about it on the YouTubes. And it doesn't have violence of action because you press that trigger one time unjustifiably, you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. So there's some major hurdles to overcome there. I'm sure some, if not most of y'all, are all pissed off. And I mean this with love in my heart. I don't care. Because this is what I've experienced firsthand, and I don't want you to do stupid shit and go start a fight you can't win. Take care of your families. Serve the Father. Be his hands and feet. Do righteousness. If war comes, be ready for it. but don't go start one. Bless y'all. Shalom.